All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Irene Porro, and I am a director of the Krista McAuliffe Center for Integrated Science Learning at Framingham State University. I know it's a mouthful. I am also the lead of the Metro West STEM Education Network that is the organizer of this event for Massachusetts STEM Week 2021. So STEM Week is organized by the Executive Office of Education and the STEM Advisory Council in partnership with the state's 9 regional STEM networks, like Metro West STEM Network. And we, the networks, are the ones that plan, coordinate activities year-round with local school communities, community leaders, and business partners. So today's event is part of a series of virtual STEM career explorations that will be offered throughout the whole week with different themes around each day. Monday has been devoted to the life sciences. For our own event, we have an outstanding group of industry leaders who will introduce our audience to career paths in the life sciences and more, I'm sure. So at this point, it is really my pleasure to introduce you to Gabriele Brambilla, who is a Chief Executive Officer of Alira Health, who is the moderator of this panel discussion. Gabriele, it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Irene. You are Italian, so you pronounce my first name and last name beautifully. Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. Yes, my name is Gabriele Brambilla. I'm the CEO of Alira Health. It is an honor and a great pleasure to be here with you guys. I've been asked to moderate a panel that hopefully will inspire you to take a career as a choice, a career in life sciences. So we'll try to do our best to be able to convince you how cool and interesting would be to have a career in life sciences. We decided to focus on certain particular topics around the area of data science, bioinformatics, computational mathematics, a lot of data analytics, a lot of buzzwords that are used often actually in our world and in the media. And we wanted to clarify to you what they might need and show you how exciting it could be actually to work in those particular disciplines. So I'll tell you 2 things about myself, and then I'll introduce the panelists. As you can get from my accent, my origin are Italian, so I'm from Italy, from north of Milan. And I didn't study to become an active player or professional in life sciences. Actually, I wanted to become a diplomat. So my studies are in probably not as so useful science, but it's political science. And that's when I started my career. And then I changed my career and I entered into life sciences by serendipity. And I love that for many reasons we can discuss later. So right now I have the role of CEO of Alira Health, which is a tech-enabled services company dedicated to life sciences worldwide. But I'm also the president of Metro West Life Sciences Network, which is this association of life sciences companies in devices and digital health solutions and pharmaceutical in Metro West. So there is a very strong interest for me to try to inspire you, because you might become obviously the talented professional that will try to recruit in the future to help with your talent, the growth of our companies. So here today as panelists, we have 4 amazing panelists, a very different background. I will tell you more about them, but we go from the entrepreneur that started a startup less than 10 years ago and had a multi-billion IPO on the NASDAQ a few weeks ago. We go from a couple of amazing scientists in the area of data science and bioinformatics, working in different corporations. And we have the president of probably, I think, the biggest public fund for investment dedicated to the life sciences ecosystem in Massachusetts. But I would like to give them the floor to introduce themselves, tell their name and their role, and then we'll go back with them and learn more about their story. So I think let's go with Jason. Go ahead, Jason.
Great, thanks. Thanks, Gabe, appreciate it. And really appreciate everyone making the time to hear our stories today. Life sciences it's a great place to be, and technology is a great place to be. So we're excited to tell you all about it. But my name is Jason Krantz. I am the CEO and founder of a company called Definitive Healthcare. We're located not far down the road from Framingham State. So we're in Framingham over by the Speen Street exit. What Definitive Healthcare does is we provide commercial intelligence to the healthcare industry. So what that means is we analyze data on every healthcare provider across the US, physicians, hospital, nursing facilities, and then we allow our clients to utilize that data to understand and navigate the complex healthcare industry. We have about 700 employees, mostly in Framingham.
Thank you, Jason. We'll dig deeper in your story. Maria, the floor is yours.
Hi, hello everyone, and thank you also for having me here. I'm just super excited to share with you what we do in the life sciences. This is really probably one of the most amazing times for life sciences today. So I'm Maria Wendt, and I work at Sanofi. Sanofi is one of the top 5 pharmaceutical companies in the world, known for both therapeutic medicines, but also for vaccines. And I'm sure you've been hearing quite a bit about this these days. And I am heading our drug discovery for Biologics here in the US, where we have labs, teams of scientists who are truly doing a lot of experimental work. But at the same time, I'm also heading our digital biologics platform, which is going for our ambitions in using machine learning and AI for drug discovery. Thanks.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you so much. Super interesting background. We're going to learn more later. Then we go to Amir. Amir, the floor is yours.
Hey, thanks, Gab. Thanks, Irene, for inviting me. I always like to talk with the young scientists and prospective scientists, so it's a great opportunity. So I currently work at MathWorks. It's a local company. Some of you may know. The campuses are right on Route 9 as you drive up and down, east and west. I have currently the fancy title of Global Head of Science and Research Engagement. What that means in practice is that I interact with scientists, and my team interacts with scientists all over the world, and we help them with computational work, tasks that they have. So we bring to them the knowledge of the company, and we bring back to the company the needs of scientists. What the company does is create computational tools, including data science, bioinformatics, that scientists can use for anything that requires calculation, computation, graphing, and so on. So for example, a biologist in the lab who wants to run an experiment, controlling the instruments can be done with special software that we make, and then acquiring the data, analyzing, graphing, and showing it and sharing it. All can be done with our tools. So it's a very interesting intersection of the math, computation, data science with life sciences and other types of fields. That's it for now, and I'm sure we'll continue with other interesting aspects of how I got to that position.
Thank you, Amir. Thank you so much. And then we go to Ken. Ken, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, Gabe. Thanks for inviting me to participate this afternoon, and I'm excited to be here. So I'm Ken Turner, and I am the president and the CEO of the Massachusetts Life Science Center. For those of you who may be unfamiliar with the center and what we do, in 2008, the Commonwealth made $1 billion 10-year commitment to solidify our preeminence in the life sciences. And this effort became known as the Massachusetts Life Sciences Initiative, and it created the Life Science Center. In 2018, the legislature and the governor signed a continuing act to invest an additional $623 million in bond authorization and tax credits over the next 5 years, which would take us in basically 2023 to further fund the center and our mission. And so, simply put, the Life Science Center is an economic development and investment entity. and our mission is to support the growth and the development of life sciences here in the Commonwealth. Put another way, my team and I are part of an organization which serves as the hub of the Massachusetts life science ecosystem. And of course, we'll talk more about that as we go through the panel.
Thank you so much, Ken. Thank you so much. This is an amazing vehicle that was created for the development of the ecosystem. And I have to say thank you to Ken, because actually helped subsidizing a lot of internships and students joining companies at the beginning of their professional life, and then being able to be hired full time. So it's a beautiful program what you provide there. So now we're going to learn about the personal stories of each of the panelists and how they got into life sciences and what actually excites them the most in their career development, in their career, and being part of this particular ecosystem. I can tell you from my side, just very quickly, that the recent, let's say, crisis through COVID-19 created a lot of different issues for our communities, but at the same time created much more interest of different stakeholders. And obviously students could be one in looking at life sciences with a higher interest, because as an example, I always make the example of my dinner table. When I have kids of 7 years old, 9 years old, I have 4 of them. We never discussed about vaccines. We never discussed about COVID. We never discussed about clinical trial. And it was really extremely difficult for me to tell my kids that I could have been as cool as a policeman or a fireman, or but it was way too difficult to explain to them what I was doing, that is helping companies to develop drugs and vaccines, for example. But now I'm not a superhero yet for my kids, but they understand better what I'm doing, and it's actually, it's nice that they're more interested in all this particular world. So having said that, let's hear about the stories of our panelists, and I hope they're going to inspire you guys. And I'm sure I'm going to tell you, maybe he's not as a name cool as an astronaut or a soccer player, but the human impact that you have in the work that we do is amazing, and it's very rewarding. It's an honor to be part of it. So let's start maybe with Amir. Amir, if you want to share your story and how you ended up being a great scientist in this world, please go ahead.
Thanks for the compliment. I don't know if it's warranted, but I'll tell you about my winding story and how I got to what I'm doing currently. So it really started very early, maybe about the age that you students are listening. In elementary school, I had the pleasure and privilege of being exposed to my first formal class in science, in chemistry. And I was hooked. And from the moment I had that class, I knew that I would be a scientist. So I think I was about 10 years old, and I did persist and pursue. Over time, while I was still a pupil in elementary school and then later in high school, I built a lab at home with the support of my parents, which is, I look at this in retrospect, is amazing. Because in addition to reading serious chemistry books, of course, at that age, I was also full of mischief. And I would create stinking materials, which I would try to do as stinking as possible, containing sulfur and all kinds of other interesting ingredients. Other things that I cannot even mention because they're not educational. So it was a lot of fun and learning. By the time I got to university, I became interested in some of the more fundamental processes of nature, which led me to study physics. So I know today it's about life sciences, but we'll get there. So I studied physics for my bachelor's degree. And then for my master's degree, I went into particle physics, which is an interesting area and very hard. And that's where I started combining that with data science, which is one of the themes I think we're going to cover today. It was, again, very interesting. It gave me the foundation of the tools and using in practice data science that I then used later in other areas. When I got to the stage of doing even more serious research, doing a PhD, I was fascinated with brain research. And so I did a PhD in applied mathematics and neuroscience, brain research, trying to understand some basic processes by which the brain controls how we move. Very simple questions, very hard to study. I used fairly advanced mathematical and computational tools. including statistical methods. It was a fascinating period. I continued with that into my postdoctoral research, which is something one does after a PhD, optionally. And when the time came to take on a real job in the world, I again shifted my interest somewhat, and I became interested in the core of the life sciences, molecular biology, genetics, bioinformatics. And at that stage, the best way to pursue that, it was not to study again at university, but to take on a job in industry that allowed both a practice, working on real problems, and learning some of the themes and topics while doing the work. And so I went to work for a small biotechnology company here in the Boston area. It was fascinating work, and I stayed on within the industry in several companies for about 15 years. All this time I was doing work related to basic questions, both applied and basic science in the life sciences, including using data science and computational tools that you will hear about more during the panel. So I spent about 15 years working in the industry, in the life sciences, working directly as a scientist with various angles. And then in recent years, I became interested in some broader questions relating also to business and strategy of how companies work. And that is what led me to my current role at the companies that creates computational tools for scientists. Probably we'll talk about later about some interesting things of how to think about your career and what's important, and then I'll be able to share some of my insights from my own career about that. But I'll pass it on to others now.
Yeah, that's a great, I mean, it's an amazing background. I mean, as I always tell you, you went from physics from exploding things to know how to move things, to how to move data, how to process data. You've done everything, so it's amazing. But I think that sometimes when we talk about bioinformatics, so especially computational mathematics and modeling, right, with like MATLAB, the product of MathWorks. MathWorks makes a particular software. It's probably the most widely used software in the world. People say, what can you do with that? Just gotta tell you guys, myself, I'm invested in a company that used MATLAB to develop an artificial heart. And the modeling was done through that software. So computer science, data science together were able to build an artificial heart virtually first on a computer, and then in reality through the approach with the engineers, they were able actually to make it. So it's incredible what actually can be done with computational mathematics and that approach. So thank you so much, Amir. So let's go to Maria. Maria, can you tell us more about how you got into this particular career and your path? You're in mute, Maria, if you want to unmute.
I'm on mute. Thanks, Gabby. So happily. So I grew up in the Philippines. And when I was small, I knew right away that math was beautiful. So probably because of my grandmother who taught me fractions when I was 4. And then I discovered calculators and that I can program calculators. So I learned how to program by myself using a calculator. Probably the listeners today do not know what calculators are anymore. And then I happened to also have acquired a computer when I was, I think, in 6th grade, which I loved fixing. So I was drawn to math and computers, and I happened to go into a special science high school in the Philippines. So that contributed the love for chemistry and biology and also physics, which led me to choose chemical engineering for my bachelor, because it's one of the engineering disciplines that combines all of them, which led to my PhD in chemical engineering, but focusing on the use of early artificial intelligence or early neural networks. And that's to, let's say, for a chemical plant to prevent chemical reactors from exploding. So fault diagnosis. And at that time, this was around 1999, year 2000, the Human Genome Project was ending. And therefore, there was a lot of data, genomic data, that was needing to be explored to really understand how our human bodies work. And so I joined a startup in Switzerland who would analyze these things for pharma companies. So this was the early days of bioinformatics, the classical bioinformatics, looking at genomics and transcriptomics data that got extended into proteomics and metabonomics. And in that time, I was applying it, for example, to help assess safety of drugs. So to have smaller studies of animals being tested by using data and computation. And the companies that I was working with turned into biotechs or biologics, and this led me to develop more computation and software to help with biologics discovery process, antibody discovery processes, also some vaccine design. And this ended up into developing a company, which was a startup after 20 years, became 250 people, and developing scientific software. I mentioned to you last time that was costing around $1 million per year. So science and scientific software, they're really, really important. And which led me to then working with one of our top clients, Sanofi, who is getting more and more deep into biologics. And me deciding, in fact, after 18 years of living in Europe and Switzerland, to move here to the Cambridge area, in particular here in Framingham, because I did feel really that force of the life sciences in this area. And then here is when, yes, I get to marry in this role that I have here, as I mentioned, very, very physical role of people doing molecular design and experiments in the lab, of marrying computation together with that. So I'm going to be happy to describe more of that later.
And to the audience, please don't worry if we are not understanding a lot of the words that actually the panelists are talking about. It's totally normal. And it's a kind of a change. In the past, I remember when I started, the words that I was not understanding were more on the chemical side, the chemistry side. You think the pharmaceutical world was kind of a spin-off of the chemical world many, many years ago. So it was all about chemistry, synthesis, was making small molecules. And now everything changed, right? When we talk about pharmaceutical, there's a lot more data, informatics, personalized medicine, and chemistry becomes a little bit less of a, it's still there, but not as a big topic and discipline. It's a lot around data. That's why data is so important. So thank you, Maria. And let's go to our amazing entrepreneur, Jason. Tell us about your story.
Great. Well, thanks again. And I just want to back up what Gabe was just saying there. You don't need to be a genius to be excited about life sciences. There's amazing tools and technologies that can help us solve difficult problems now. So really it's about, if you are a critical thinker and you like solving problems and you're interested in that type of thing, you can absolutely pursue a career in life sciences. So with that said, I'll give you my story. You know, I've been an entrepreneur for a long time, but way back when, you know, when I was a kid, I grew up in Wisconsin, in the middle of nowhere, not exactly the technology and life sciences center of the universe, although that has changed dramatically. I was always a math person growing up. I loved solving difficult problems. But as I was getting into my teenage years, I started getting into computers a little bit. And so I got my first computer when I was 14, and it was a computer called the Apple II Plus. So the Apple II Plus, you all have iPhones in your hand that are about that big. The Apple II Plus was about yay big with a monitor that was 40 or 50 pounds. So it was a very different world, and the power of the Apple II Plus at the time seemed extraordinary, but in today's standard could do very little. So I started getting into a little bit of very light programming. I started creating some games and things like that that look very different than the games you all play today. But at the same time, so my interest started moving towards technology a little bit, from math to technology, but I was always also very interested in business. So my father was a small business owner. When I was 12, I was mowing lawns and realized that I could actually make more money if I hired other kids to mow the lawns for me. And I became the person who would get the jobs and manage the jobs and make sure the lawnmowers had gas. So that was really my first foray into business. But as I went into college, I started becoming very interested in how technology intersects with business. So I decided to pursue a double major in college of finance, which is a great business major, along with computer science. So after I graduated from college, I went and became a management consultant. So what a management consultant does is it helps CEOs of companies figure out where are there opportunities to grow more quickly. Are there different markets they can get into? Are there different products that they want to launch? And this is where I started developing an understanding of the power of data. So we would, as management consultants, we would take a lot of data from our clients on what they were selling and to who they were selling. And we would start to analyze that data in tools like Excel, but also statistical programs to try to find out interesting answers that nobody else had seen before. So new opportunities that were emerging, or other areas, maybe we'd look at the profitability of a product and we'd drive decision making off of that. So using data to drive business decisions became very exciting to me. So I went back to business school in the year 2000. And the year 2000, Marie, you brought it up with the Genome project, but there was a lot going on in 2000. It was the launch of the internet. So the internet has not been around forever. So in 2000, it was being launched, and it was a really exciting time because it opened up all of these new opportunities to sell in different ways and reach consumers in different ways that we've never done before. So with that, I started my first business. I was inspired by all the people starting businesses at that time. So I started a company called Infinata. And Infinata was intending to take this intersection of technology and business and create a software package that would help people use data to make better decisions in business. It was focused on life sciences. So we tracked every clinical trial across the world. So Gabe brought it up before. Nobody really talked about clinical trials before until COVID. And now, we understand the importance of testing drugs in large groups of people, making sure they're safe, making sure they're effective before they go to the general population. So I built that company up over the next 7 years and eventually sold it to the Financial Times Group, which is a large British media company. And after spending a few years with that company, I decided to start my own business. Again, start another business. So the area that I got excited about was healthcare. And healthcare, what's great about it is it's a huge market. It's $4 trillion and makes up 20% of the entire economy in the US. So it's a big market, but it's got its challenges. It's costly, there's quality issues. There's just a lot of things that can be better about healthcare. So what got me really excited is you can actually make a difference. So I can do something that interests me. I like data, I like technology. But in healthcare, you can have an impact and you can help drive new drugs that save lives or drive down costs in healthcare. So that's what got me excited about healthcare. And then I started a company called Definitive Healthcare. And our goal, as I said at the beginning, was to help people understand this very large market and figure out how to sell and compete in it more effectively. So Definitive Healthcare has grown fast over the last 10 years. Like I said, we're in Framingham. We have over 700 employees overall. And most recently, we, as Gabe said, we IPO'd, so we became a public company. So now we're traded on the NASDAQ under the ticker symbol DH. And it's really, it's an exciting milestone for the company. It's, sort of an entrepreneur's dream in general, but it also opens up a lot of opportunities for us to hire new great people that can critical think and solve difficult problems. And continue to transform healthcare, partner with our clients to transform healthcare. So it's a really exciting time to be in life sciences. I think for scientists as well as business people, as well as just interesting critical thinkers and people that want to do more for the world. So I definitely encourage you to keep learning, and this is a great start. The fact that you're here today is an amazing start down that journey.
Thank you so much, Jason. I think you pointed out a very important fact, actually, that you don't have to be a scientist or a doctor only to be part of this ecosystem, to actually bring value to the discovery phase of new drugs or new medical devices. Think about the example of Jason, computer scientist that that he was actually building games, right, video games, and then became the entrepreneur he is. In my company, I have my data scientist, actually the best one we have. He used to be an anthropologist, and from anthropology, he decided to become a data scientist. So I think there are different ways and venue. The common denominator is really why you're doing it. It's a market where I think there is this human impact that probably not every market has. With your discoveries, you are impacting human lives, you are saving human lives, you are helping preventing disease, make a correct diagnosis of disease, managing better disease. And it's amazing when you see that in action, right? It's so rewarding. So that's an important driver. But again, biology is an important part of it, but not only doctors are driving that change. A computer scientist, a mathematician can drive that change too. So keep that in mind when you think about your career. And let's go to Ken, and let's learn more about Ken and how he got into this amazing role that he has right now, helping us out developing the ecosystem in Massachusetts.
Happy to, Gabe. And to Jason's point, you don't have to be a scientist to be in life science, to be in the life sciences sector. And I'm a poster child for that. My background is I spent 26 years in the Navy. I am a nuclear weapons submariner and served across various commands throughout my career, retiring as a Navy captain ultimately after a combination of 6.5 years of active duty and 20 years in the reserves. At the same time, I pursued a career in the private sector, first in packaged goods at Hallmark Cards, where I did new business strategy and new product development, and ultimately ran an $80 million business unit. And then Hasbro Toy Company in Rhode Island, where I oversaw a cross-functional product development team that developed toys that were targeted to infants and children. Things like Spirograph and Light Bright, you might be familiar with. And then went on to run all of trade marketing for Hasbro Toy Company before, as Jason alluded to, coming to the internet in 2000, February of 2000. I came over to run a startup for a Harvard professor by the name of Henry Louis Gates, who you may be familiar with, called Africana.com, and then sold that to Time Warner, where I became a Time Warner executive. And then after AOL and Time Warner merged, I became an AOL Time Warner executive, where I was responsible for emerging markets, where we launched the largest Black, Hispanic, and entrepreneur websites in the world at the time. And then I went on to be a marketing vice president for a local college before coming to government about, God, now it's been about 10 years ago, I guess. No, about 12 years ago. So I started my public sector career first as the Deputy Secretary and Chief Financial Officer for Veteran Services for Governor Patrick and the Patrick administration, where I served for 2 years in that role. And then I took on the role as the Director of Diversity and Inclusion and Compliance for the Port Authority for 7 years. And then I was selected in October of last year to be the CEO and President of the Science Center. And so I believe that what was appealing about my background to the board, who interviewed, as I understand it, over 130 some odd candidates for this role, was my military background and my leadership background. Clearly, I'm not a scientist. I'm not. In fact, if you looked at my chemistry and biology grades in college, you'd know why I didn't go that path. Now, that said, what I think it speaks to is that if you are interested in the life sciences, that there are a host of jobs that are available to you beyond R&D. There are a host of jobs available to you beyond manufacturing. There are marketing jobs, there's communication jobs, there are regulatory jobs, there are compliance jobs. There's all these other roles you can play beyond being in a white lab coat. And I think that, you know, my role obviously represents that, and my career obviously reflects that. That there are different ways to think about it. You know, so why am I here? Why did I want this job? It was simple. If you look at my career, it's always been about doing something that I thought was different and cutting edge and exciting. And so as I started to think about what I wanted to do as I was leaving the Port Authority, I was literally thinking about going back to the private sector, and was starting to have conversations in that regard. And someone asked me, was there anything in government that I wanted to do? Was there a job I wanted? And this was about a year or so before I was offered this job. And I said, well, yeah, there's one job. And I said, it's the Life Science Center. I would love to run that if it were available. And why? Is because I thought it was an exciting, cutting edge industry to be in. I am always amazed when I'm out and about visiting companies and visiting research institutions and colleges and non-for-profits to learn about what they're working on. I was at a company recently that was launching their new headquarters, and I turned to the chief scientist and said, so what are you guys working on? And he said, oh, we're restoring people's hearing. I opened the newspaper last week and I'm reading about a CRISPR experiment where they restored sight to 5 people. That's life sciences. And if that doesn't make you excited to be part of something that innovative, that is that important to mankind and society, then I don't know what else to tell you. So you don't have to be a scientist. You just have to be a person who cares about people and who cares about patients and who cares about medicine and who cares about science. And so I feel very fortunate to be in the role that I'm in, and I'm always in awe when I'm out and about visiting folks and seeing the cutting edge work that's going on in this industry. And it's validated my choice.
That's great. That's a great story, Ken. Thank you so much for sharing it. It's amazing the diverse background we have on this call, right? Military, political science, physics, computer science, bioinformatics. It's again, you can come in from different angles. So I know we had kind of a script, but I need to follow my heart. And my daughter asked me to ask a question to Maria, so I'm going to ask a question to Maria about that, because my daughter is always thinking about the role of women in certain type of industries, and because in the past I was working in finance, in investment banking, which is a very predominant man world, and she didn't like that, which is not the case for life sciences for sure. Maybe the question to Maria is, how difficult did you find it more difficult, according to you, to have a career in life sciences as a woman, or you think that actually life sciences it's not easier, but as a much more respect for the talent that women can bring to our ecosystem? How did you leave that?
I guess I just say that in the early part of my career, it's quite often I'm the only woman in the room. And I was pleasantly surprised when I moved here, at least here at Sanofi, that we have actually quite a parity, 50 to 55%. Sometimes there's even more women than men. So there are some changes going on. I have to say that it's the women today, women scientists today, especially young women scientists, I don't think they're going to be immune from being again alone or the minority in a company of men. However, just be yourself, just do your best, and it will shine through. So I never really felt that barrier, that obstacle, but perhaps I was just very fortunate. But the best is really to always just know why you're doing it, and be prepared.
Thank you so much, Maria. Thank you. The other thing I wanted to point out is you students and even the teachers are kind of, I think, coming from Italy and having worked here for 11 years now and became American too. I discovered how important is to grow in an ecosystem that allows you to have all the tools, all the networks to develop a certain particular expertise in a particular field. And I wanted to ask Ken if he agrees that probably there's no other places in the world that is as fertile and as valuable for the pharmaceutical business and the medical device business as Massachusetts. So I wanted maybe to Ken to make a couple of comments on how is this Massachusetts, and whether he believes that actually the students that are studying in the high schools right now in Massachusetts are kind of an edge. Because this is where a lot of the discovery and a lot of the action is happening, right? Do you agree with that, Ken?
Yeah, happy to take that, Gabe. But before I do, I'm going to go back to the question around diversity and inclusion and equity in the life sciences field. One of the things that I'm going to work on mightily while I am in this role is increasing the participation of women and people of color in the life sciences. As I go around and visit with the schools and the research institutions and the companies across the state, on the one hand, I'm very excited by what I find in terms of the research and the cutting edge work that's being done and the unbelievable creativity and innovation that goes into that. But as I look around, I don't see the level of diversity that I think we should have. And when I say that, I don't mean that that is unique to Massachusetts. In fact, I know for a fact that it's not. Less than, I think I just saw a statistic, I think just as late as last week, and I may misquote it because this is off the top of my head and not in my notes, but I think it was only 3% or so of the life sciences is diverse, which to me is not where we need to be and not where we want to be. So we've got to lean in and get more women and people of color excited about math and science early on in their schooling and education, and introduce them to the possibilities of what you can achieve in life sciences. And look, I was talking with Tim Ritchie over at the Science Museum a number of weeks ago as we unveiled an exhibit called The Race to the Vaccine that educates people on how we got to the vaccine, which I'm proud to say that in concert with our partners at J&J, we help fund. But I was saying to him that, if you're a Black kid growing up in Louisiana like me, and you don't know about the field of architecture, how can you become an architect? You've got to introduce kids to what the possibilities are. And so conversations like today are important in that regard. So having said that, now I'll answer your question. If you are a young person growing up here in the Commonwealth, you could not be in a better spot or in a better place when it comes to the life sciences. Massachusetts ranks at the top of almost any metric you can think of when we think about the life sciences. Let me give you a few. We have more people who graduate and come into the life sciences than any other state in the union. We have more advanced degrees and PhDs than any other state in the union. We are the number one on the metric of NIH investments on a per capita basis. We are number one on a per capita basis when it comes to VC funding in the life sciences. Some $6 or $7 billion are amassed in our VC community aimed at life sciences. And so I could go on and on and on. Now, having said that, that success is uneven. I just spoke to that. You know, we need to look for ways to be more competitive when it comes to biomanufacturing. And so that's something that I'm going to work on with the center. We need to have more women and more minorities. That's something I'm going to work on with the center. We need to have more women and minority entrepreneurs. When I look at a person like Jason, I want to see more people of color and more women running companies in the life sciences. So there's still a lot of work to do. There's a lot to be proud of. And most certainly we have the most robust ecosystem in the world, not in the United States, in the world, but we still have work to do. And when I look at Lowell, when I look at Lawrence, when I look at Metro West, or the North Shore, or Bedford, right? Or if I go to Springfield or to Western Mass, where I was just a few weeks ago, there's lots of places that we need to spread this economic opportunity out. We need better access beyond the Boston, Cambridge area. So all of that is the stuff that I'm working on in my role as the head of the Life Science Center.
Ken, it's great to have you as a leader of the center, because your passion, your commitment is extraordinary. So we feel it every time we talk about it. It's great. Feel the energy. I'm feeding through it. Thank you. Amir, you again, for me, it's even complex to understand your curriculum, because there's so many different things, and you've done so many different things in a great way. Can you share with the students maybe a couple of, or one episode that when it happened, make you feel, oh, I'm so glad I picked this career. Oh, I'm so glad I'm in this field. Was there a wow, like a moment where you say, oh, I'm really happy I decided it? And it could be anything, just to share with them so that we can inspire them, or what feeds you, feeds your excitement every time you wake up in the morning and work on all those very difficult things that you work on.
Thank you. That's a very good question. So I'll mention maybe two in different angles. So I'll start with one related to physics. Since I mentioned in my early stage of my career, I worked on particle physics. Some people may have heard there's an elusive particle called the Higgs. Maybe you saw it in the news sometime a few years ago. It's a fundamental particle that has to do with how gravity works in the world. And I won't get into more details besides that. If you're interested, please go and study physics. But I will mention something from my career trajectory. When I made the decision to go into the life sciences, brain research in my PhD, I left particle physics behind. There wasn't a possibility, an opportunity to continue in physics. And what happened 15 years later, when the Higgs particle was discovered in a big machine accelerator, I said, oh, I could have been one of that team of 1,000 scientists, physicists that would have discovered it and got the Nobel Prize. So I wasn't, but I didn't regret that, because I did follow my interests into working in neuroscience and the life sciences. So then, Gab, to answer the second part of your question, with the second event, while I was working in the pharmaceutical industry, and to what Ken and others mentioned, part of the joy of working in the life sciences is doing things that help humanity, help people. And I was working, designing, and reporting clinical trials. And part of the joy was to see how things are progressing. One important drug I was working on developing is an antibiotic. Very important now that we are all aware of infectious diseases and what they do to humanity, to people. It's one of the most important things. And when you progress and see the results, positive results of a clinical trial, you know that you're moving one step closer to helping people who would be in dire need, saving their life or from severe illness. And this is millions of people. So during my 15 years of work in biotech and pharmaceutical research, having those moments of little joy of seeing something progress towards success in helping people is a wonderful feeling. There's a lot of work that goes into that day and night for years, and then you get those moments of great satisfaction from the work, which is in addition to the joy of just doing science in and of itself when you're interested in it. So these are my 2 points.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Thank you, Amir. Thank you. That's great. And Jason, maybe a question for you, and then we can open up if you have some questions for the audience. But I mean, your story is amazing, right? This is the dream come true of taking a startup from a garage. Let's picture like that. It was not a garage, probably it was the small place you sat in front of Framingham State University, where you were, and then you took it to a multi-billion company. And so it's something very special that you built. Is there, and you did it through the entrepreneurial process, right? So running the company, building the company. Is there anything particular in being you, from your character, from how you behave, from who you are, that really helped you the most to get to where you are? Is there some part of you that you highlight, say, that really helped me the most to get to the level I am and I reach right now? And I know it's not your limit. Your limit is much higher than where you are right now because you're ambitious. But can you share if there is anything that you could share about that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. It's an important question, and the answer has nothing to do with science or anything like that. So it's really about how do you create a culture where everybody can contribute the maximum of what they're capable of. So we've worked very hard to create a culture that people want to be at and people are drawn to, that's highly inclusive. And then once they come here and they become part of the company, I think it's really important to make sure that people feel they have sort of this space to be creative and the space to take risks and be decisive and make mistakes, and that's okay. Particularly within life sciences, I mean, this is to some extent, it's an industry of many failures before every success. So drug development, as an example, we've talked a lot about today, is very difficult, and there's a lot of failures before that. But the only way that you come up with something new and innovative that nobody's ever done before is to try new things. And trying new things is hard and challenging, and results in misses a lot. But we've tried really hard to create a definitive healthcare, an environment where people feel that it's okay to take those risks and they want to be challenged. And I think we've really been able to get the most out of our people as a result. So, as a company starts to grow, what you quickly realize as an entrepreneur is you can't do everything yourself. You need that diversity of thought, and you need other people contributing new ideas in order to help you continually to grow and scale the organization. So that's really been the key to the success. Is the best thing I can do is put the wheels in motion for 700 amazing people to come to work every day and be inspired and be excited about what we're trying to create and new problems that we're trying to solve.
Thank you so much. Great words from a great leader. I think we don't have a lot of time, but what I wanted to also underline is that here in the panel, we have a representation from the life sciences space that comes mainly from the manufacturer or service world. But life sciences, you can enlarge it also to other areas, right? You have you can include also the providers world, right? The people that actually servicing and helping in managing treating a disease, working in a hospital, in a home care facility, in an outpatient center. So all those type of jobs are actually impacting as much as medical technology, pharmaceutical, biopharma technology, and digital social technology can help and improve clinical outcome. Actually, medical care, which is the world of delivering care, is as much as impactful. So it's a combination between medical technology development and medical care that really transform healthcare and improves it. And then there is also the world of the maybe more economical, but people that are interested in math, the world of the payer world, right? It's not only the providers, it's not only the manufacturers. There's a world of the payers. So as you know, most of the payers is actually not out of the pocket money in the United States, for example, but it's coming from commercial payers or the government with CMS, Medicare and Medicaid. And obviously, even that area of payers needs new innovation, needs new talent, because the way on how healthcare is driven in the United States is not perfect. We know about it. So we need new talent also in that part of the ecosystem. And then you have the regulators, which is again, not the payers, but the people working at the FDA, the people that are defining new policy for registering a drug or not. So there are very different areas in the ecosystem where you can bring your talent and shine and actually make a change. So think about that too. Even if in the panel, obviously, we represented a lot more than the manufacturing and the solution world. So having said that, we'll come to, actually, I'm connecting here from Europe. It's 8 o'clock for me PM. It's 2 for you there, guys. But let's see if you have any questions. If you don't have any questions, I will just wrap it up. Irene, do we have any questions? I cannot see the chat.
I'm monitoring the chat. I don't see any particular question. I know that, right, we're very close to the end time.
Okay.
But yep, questions can also be submitted through the Q&A.
Okay, sounds good. So if there's no question, I see here. Okay, if there's no question, guys, for us, we miss the personal touch here because we don't see you, right? And probably many of you will see this through a recording and not through a live event. But speaking for myself, and I'm sure speaking for the panel, it's an amazing honor to try to inspire the future talent of our industry. So we hope that from the people, among the people that are listening to this, we're going to see a lot of you actually join us in the quest and in the mission of improving healthcare in the United States or throughout the world. So
I'd like to say one thing though, that we know for sure we had students from both Malden and Marlborough that were listening to this presentation. We don't know for sure where all the participants are from, but we know for sure at least we had students from Malden and Marlborough, and I'm sure for them this presentation was extremely inspiring.
I hope you enjoy it, guys. And now you know our names, so you can contact somehow, somewhere through Irene if you want to have Irene actually. If you have any question, we're always open for answer to interact with the new talents. So here we are. Okay.
For the educators out there, this panel discussion is being recorded and will be available on our website, the Metro West STEM Education Network's website. We will send emails to all educators to remind them of this opportunity. We know that many of them ask for being able to see the recording instead. And feel free to send questions directly to us, to our email address. If they are specific to one of our speakers, we'll make sure they get them.
Thank you so much, guys. It was an honor and a pleasure. Thank you. Bye-bye, Irene. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, guys.